The Krivbeknih, an arcane tome filled with an unintelligible language and rituals that pay homage to gods that dwell in the deep, in the dark. It is one of the strangest topics of discussion to be had about Fallout 3, partly due to little information being given on the topic, partly due to the story having to be pieced together across the DLC, the game guide and cut content. But piece it together, I have. So now we look upon the stitched together lore of this occult tome, and all that surrounds it. Our tale begins at the Manor of Blackhall, a rundown Victorian household that we can find towards the western section of Point Lookout. The manor itself gives us a perfect look into some of the dark practices that take place in this swamp. Fetishes constructed of human remains, tied to poles in the ground, or hung from trees, like shite Halloween decorations. Children's dolls occupy many of the same places, either the dolls as a whole or the heads of them mounted on many of the same objects as the aforementioned fetishes. This is most likely a reference to the Isla de las Muñecas, the island of the dolls, south of Mexico City. However, it's the resident of this manor that interests us, as they are the first step to piecing together the crazy story of the family Blackhall and the Krivbeknih.
Keep your distance. What are you doing in my house? You're in Blackhall Manor. This isn't a tourist attraction. I appreciate your good taste. Come, let's talk.
So this is Obadiah Blackhall, the current owner of Blackhall Manor, and the man who sets us out on the quest to retrieve the book. We can talk to him to find out more information about him and it.
Try not to get that filth on you while you're out there. Good, good. People should be able to sit and have a conversation, especially in times like these. Civil discourse, the greatest of our lost arts. Wouldn't you agree? I'm glad you think so. Conversation is but one of the virtues that separate us from cretins like those swampfolk. Swampfolk who, I should mention, absconded with a book, a precious family heirloom. I wanted to ask you, friend, will you get it back? Cash, plain and simple. Return with the book, and I'll pay you 1,000 caps, no questions asked. Good. The fools who stole it believe it has powers, so the thing is probably well guarded. There's a ritual site east of the boardwalk, in the basement of a ruined house. I think you'll find it there. Bring it back to me, and be paid. Don't be daft. You agreed to retrieve my book. With more haste than this, I would have thought. You need to head to the ritual site east of the boardwalk, and expect a fight. I don't suppose there's any harm indulging you. What interests you? Hundreds of years, and still standing strong. You're within a fine example of Victorian architecture, my friend. Just as much as it's named after us, I suppose. We took the Blackhall name when we arrived on these shores, generations before the Great War. We do well to remember history, particularly in this dark time. What else do you want to discuss? I suppose larceny isn't enough reason to hate. You must be new here if you don't know the answer to that by now. Yes, they're dangerous. They shoot at, smash, or try to eat anything that isn't them, and half the time they shoot at each other. They may have been men once, but no more. No, not them. That lot wants for brains. But they're at least somewhat civilized. The swamp folk have no creed, no morals. They think the book has a kind of occult power. Superstition and nonsense, of course. What else do you... Don't get yourself killed.
He requests of us that we retrieve his book from him from the swampfolk. Now it's interesting how he talks about them. He looks down on them and talks about them as if he himself is better than them, which, to be fair, even after what happens later, is still the case. He speaks of their low intelligence and talks as if the book does not have any otherworldly properties, that it's only a family heirloom. We also learn that his family were immigrants, and it is implied that there may have been some of the earlier settlers, given both the age of the house and the Confederate hats that can be found around the property. So it's an old family, very old, and has inhabited this house for generations. This means that their family has been involved in Point Lookout for centuries, and also with the book, though more on that later. When you try and leave to obtain the book, Marcella, the woman from the camp on the beach, will stop you.
Wait a moment. I need to know. Has Obadiah sent you in search of a book? I thought as much. Listen to me very carefully, child. You mustn't bring it to him. That book is known as the Krivbeknih, and it's a thing of evil purpose. Yes, the Krivbeknih. The Blackhall family has a long, evil history with the book. It was lost to them long ago, but it's found a way back to Point Lookout, and Obadiah seeks to reclaim it. I can't promise you money, but I have some medical supplies I can share. Please, it would be a good thing you do. Obadiah's no better than the heathens he's asked you to steal it from. He believes he can use it to control them, and God knows what else. There's a way to destroy that damned thing. I intend to do just that. I ask no more. You can find me at my tent on the beach, south of Blackhall. God bless your path, child.
So she asks us to give her the book, and not him, so that she herself can destroy it. Now a few things jump out at me here. She knows about the Obadiahs, she knows the name of the book, and she has suspicions on what he will do with it. Here we learn that he wants to use it to control the swampfolk, mutated, twisted people, and this becomes more important later, as more of this story unfolds. The odd thing is that why she knows about it at all. Pre-war, okay, some esoteric group like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, sure. It would have made sense if such a pre-war group was aware of the book, given that it has genuine supernatural powers. However, a post-war group 2 centuries later, still aware of such an object? Well, we'll have to take a closer look at her to see what this group actually is. We can find her terminal entries inside her tent, and it provides us with some needed information. It appears Obadiah tried to get her to procure the book as well, and she told him to fuck off. If we take a look at the top of the terminal, it appears she comes from a group called the Abbey of the Road. If you talk to her, you can learn more, but given that there is so much, I will summarize it for you. Abbey of the Road is a post-war religious organisation that travels the waste and spreads the word of God and the Bible. They also restore and collect religious artifacts, which is where the Krivbeknih comes into play. She says that the book is the foundation of Krivbi Ritualists, which seems to be a religion either based around the book or the entities the book represents. She knows that Obadiah cannot get his hands on the book, or he will use the power of the book to reap havoc. So she asks us to bring it to her. Unfortunately, her story does not have a happy ending, as we shall soon see. Further in her entries, she states that she has heard of the book before, and must destroy it. This suggests that the Abbey of the Road is aware of objects like this, and makes it its business to rid the world of them. Now for the book itself. We must enter a tribal ritual site, and when we make it to the darkest depths, this is what we find. A grotesque altar built up around the book, with a pseudo-corpse made of various pieces of flesh and dolls laid out in front of it. Several fetishes are erected around it, and a skull can be found in the lectern. The otherworldly whispers that can be found near the pillar in Dunwich are also present here, suggesting a connection, of which there is one, but more on that later. The book itself looks old and worn, with a stab mark on the cover, suggesting that someone tried to destroy it. The book itself is almost certainly a reference to the Necronomicon, a grimoire that appears in the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, as many of the other supernatural references in Fallout 3 do. After retrieving the book, we have the option to return it to Obadiah or to Marcella. Well, Obadiah's a cunt, so let's give it to Marcella. Upon arriving in her tent, you will be attacked by a group of smugglers, though why they are here is a mystery to me. However, what they did here is not. Fuckers killed Marcella. It appears they painted Die Thief in blood on her tent wall, most likely in her blood. Now why they're calling her a thief can be speculated on, as there is a chance she may have stole supplies from them. But the only one who could have told us that is her. And she did. You can gain access to her safe for some supplies, but the real interest lies on her terminal. An entry called Found an Ally talks about us and our quest for the Krivbeknih, her hoping that we will do the good thing and bring the book to her. I want to point out here that she will always die. You cannot give her the book, you cannot save her. The next interesting thing is her audio log, which she recorded after getting shot.
They attacked while I slept. I don't expect to survive. I only pray that that you haven't taken that book to Obadiah. You must take up my mission. There is one way to utterly destroy the Krivbeknih, but you must take a pilgrimage far north of Point Lookout in the capital wasteland. Seek a place called Dunwich. Within is an obelisk, itself a wicked thing. It'll consume the book. You need only press the book to its surface. May God shed his blessings upon you, child. Make haste for Dunwich. My God, I am sorry for all my sins with all my heart. In choosing to do wrong and failing to do good, I have sinned against you, whom I should.
Her log tells us that she was attacked in her sleep, though why they left her alive after that to just die on her own is unknown, and a bit odd. She tells us how to destroy the book. We need to make a pilgrimage. We must return to a place that I walked long ago, a place that I already covered in a video, and will hopefully conclude the story of today. We must place the book on a surface of an ancient pillar, to destroy it and rid the world of it forever. After that, it's her apologising to God for leading a shit life. This might mean that she's reformed, yet she states the Abbey of the Road raised her, so whatever her crimes were, she took that tale to her grave. Now, just so we can get all the information, let's take the book to Obadiah and see what becomes of our choice.
The book. You found it. Quickly, give it to me. Surely you're not considering giving it to Marcella. Come now, that woman can't rub two caps together. Give it to me and be paid. Can't say that I did, but that's all the more reason you should give the book to me. We had a bargain, roughneck. Hand the book over and collect your fee. Yes, of course. Here's your errand fee. Now give it to me. You shouldn't be here. Get out of my home. Don't play at what you misunderstand, troglodyte. Get out. You shouldn't be here. So leave then.
So we find out that he was not the cause of Marcella's death, and that he's essentially telling us to get to fuck now that he has the book. Well, don't get. Follow him. Because we end up in an old cellar with him, and the fetishes within, not to mention the skeletons, confirm what Marcella feared. He is using the book's occult powers. On the altar, a dead creeper can be found, its head cut off, and Obadiah seems to be in the process of a ritual or prayer of sorts. You can talk with him one more time. He tells you to leave, yet again, and that's it.
We are nothing alike. More so than you could ever comprehend. Go now. Never return.
He was planning to use the book, and based on the corpse, he was going to use it to control the swampfolk, mutated and twisted people. He then says something occasionally, something that ties it all together. Ug-Qualtoth is returned. Be afraid, worms. Now before we conclude the story, let's take the book back off this sick arsehole. Once that is sorted, it's time to link his family to Dunwich. One of his ancestors was Constance Blackhall, a woman who married into the Blackhall family. Now doing so gave her access to all sorts of wealth, and this leads to two branching theories. She married into the family to get money so that she could collect cult artifacts, or she married into them because of their already involvement with the Krivbeknih. If it's the former, then she is most likely the reason the family got involved in the occult, maybe even the founder of Krivbi. She lived for quite a while after the bombs dropped, most likely due to the power of the book, as when it was stolen, she succumbed to death shortly after. But how does this link to Dunwich, I hear you ask? Her brother, Richard Dunwich. At this point I want to mention that a lot of info on her and her brother is from cut content and the game guide, so keep that in mind. If his name was Dunwich, she must have took Blackhall after she married. This means that she already came from a family that was involved in the occult, which lends more credibility to theory number 1. Richard Dunwich was also the owner of Dunwich Borers LLC, which is a play on words of Dunwich Horrors, which once again was a story written by H.P. Lovecraft. So she was the sister of a man who owned the company that built the building over the obelisk that we must return to one last time. I've covered the events of this building before, but let's do a quick recap for old time's sake. The building is full of strange supernatural events, such as doors opening and closing, hallucinations, and objects being knocked over. Dotted around the building are the logs of Jaime, which I covered in my video on this place if you want to go and hear them. What happened is as follows. The Krivbeknih somehow came into possession of Jaime's father, who tried to return it to the building where he found it, and seems to have gone insane in the process. Jaime goes looking for him and eventually finds his now ghoulified father, and then the book. He turned into a ghoul after resting against the obelisk that can be found in the virulent underchamber, and after that either fell under its influence or the book's. How the book made it out of the building is unknown. Now let's take a look at the pillar. The backside is adorned with 5 skulls, all human, deeply wedged into the pillar. Tendrils made from the same material as the pillar snake around it, and a strange female figure can be found half emerged from the top of it. If we take the book and press it into the pillar, this is what happens.
Oh!
The book is destroyed, and radiation bursts out of the pillar. So what is this pillar depicting? Well, I think it's depicting Ug-Qualtoth, the entity that Obadiah refers to, and the entity that is mentioned in several entries in the Dunwich Building. I think this building was built over the obelisk so that the Dunwich family could use it for whatever reason they needed to. The book and the pillar are said to share the same origins, so perhaps they both allowed the user to communicate with Ug-Qualtoth, which may be referencing Yog-Sothoth, or a similar entity of H.P. Lovecraft's. As for why they wanted this book and this pillar, control. When we find the pillar, Jaime and his ghouls are communicating with it, worshipping it. The pillar even turned Jaime into a ghoul. The book is the same. The same whisperings can be heard near it as the obelisk, and Obadiah wanted to use it to control the swampfolk. The book also drove Jaime's father mad, possibly manipulating him to return it to Dunwich. I think Ug-Qualtoth is an entity which wants to control others. Both artifacts related to it try to control or break people's minds. Perhaps that is why the altar emits radiation. It wishes to turn people into feral ghouls, to leave their minds more susceptible to its manipulations. The same can be said of the swampfolk. With all the radiation and inbreeding, I'm sure there's more than one hole in their mental defense. Now this entity does not seem to have been active before the bombs dropped, as the terminals that reference it are dated 2134. Many years after. Perhaps it sensed the world was broken, and it could finally make its move, now that it had creatures that it can control. Or, perhaps all the radiation gave it the power it needed. Either way, it and the Krivbeknih are strange and powerful artifacts that hint to us of a greater world of darkness than the one we inhabit and walk in the wastes. Perhaps one that we will get to explore in our journeys in the Commonwealth. An ancient tome full of darkness and rituals that pay homage to an ancient being that we cannot even begin to imagine. I also want to point out that during this video I was fucking loaded with a cold, so that's why my voice sounds very nasally and blocked up. If you enjoyed my look into this and want to see more of my content, check out my playlist to see if there are any more questions on Folly that you have, and I may have answered. Any support in spreading the word of this channel is greatly appreciated, as Fallout 4 is just around the corner. If you want to support me and get regular channel updates, subscribe. Any suggestions or feedback for the episode should be left in the comments below or on my subreddit, which is linked in the description. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook to get regular channel updates and to talk to me or have a wee chat. If you want to contact me regarding business, send me an email on the thenthapple.business@gmail.com, the link of which can be found on the About section of my channel, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you did enjoy this episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.